Welcome to the No Script Show, where we think buying black people lunch equals reparations.
I will speak to Reverend Jesse Jackson about that at the
my
next
God.
Council of Black People with Snoop Dogg and Jay-Z.
Right.
Both Jay-Z's, by the way. Jacob and Jay-Z.
Can you imagine Zuma, Kanye, and Jay-Z all in the same room, though? Like, I kind of want to see that.
Well, it'd be weird because, at least Kanye knows how to count, and Jay-Z knows how to count, but Zuma doesn't know how to count.
That's true, which is why it would be entertaining. So, welcome to the No Script Show. We have our guest, Ramon, on the show with us. His gravelly voice with a phone in the background. But
How embarrassing.
We're going to leave that ringing, though, because that's the kind of show this is, produced to the highest professional standards.
So now that Ramon is on, I guess that makes us fully alt-right. Except in a week we'll be fully communist. I don't know, it switches every couple of days.
I've lost track. I've really lost track.
Well, did you see that?
Yeah,
did you see the article in the Daily Maverick this week, which called the ZACP Marxist? Actually, so.
Oh my God, is that Seb Garrett?
Yes, someone like that.
He is a special brand of I do not want to use mean language, but he is. He was actually on the launch live stream as well, and immediately after that, he wrote this long post on LinkedIn, which was just kind of pathetic.
Was it him?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Yes.
Wow.
I know.
Is he like a hardcore anarcho-capitalist or something?
I don't know what he is. I honestly can't place him because I think my personal theory at this point is that he is just jealous of the fact that other people are doing what he wished he was doing. So he
follows. Oh, so it's like in school where you neg the girl that you want to date. You just throw stones at her and make up mean rumors about her and that kind of thing.
I think so. Also, Roman, you now get to deal with all of Wotan's analogies, which almost all involve women. It's weird.
What?
Yeah.
It's high school is the perfect analogy for life. You can draw so many analogies for life outside.
Well, not my high school. There's a Catholic boys' school.
Wow.
I went to a private boarding school.
Oh wow, that's even worse. Were there girls there?
Yeah, it was co-ed.
Co-ed boarding school. That just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
The boarding rooms were on the opposite ends of the school property, just FYI. It was called Summit College. It was in Danefern, so
Danefern. But I thought there was a white ghetto. They allow people like you inside there.
Yes, they allow people like me because they think that I'm a beautiful chocolate man. So
Right. I mean, I used to have friends who live in Danefern, and I think it is the most possibly horrific place I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely awful in terms of taste, in terms of the lager mentality, everything. It's like the perfect melting pot of terrible taste and nouveau richness.
This explains so much. Thank you, Ramon. I'm now coloring in Odin's background as we go. It all makes sense now.
I also went to Hyde Park High for a while, so there's that.
Okay.
All right, you have redeemed yourself a little bit. So, well, thank you for inviting me to your show. What are we supposed to talk about, if anything in particular?
It really is just whatever.
It's the internet water cooler where we just chat shit.
Except during day zero when there is no water. Thanks, DA.
Right.
That's coming back, by the way. There's we're up to stage 5 again, and they haven't dropped the prices, so that's what we get to deal with now.
All right, just 2 caveats. I haven't watched Avengers, and I haven't watched the latest Game of Thrones, so I will punch.
Both of them are pretty satisfactory, so I think you'll be satisfied.
All right, so no spoilers on this side. So, I mean, let me ask you a question. It's a week now to the elections.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Get hype.
So it's a week to elections, 2 weeks till the first racial civil war.
That's a very optimistic timeline, but carry on.
But let's talk about the elections. What are your views? What do you think on the IRR polling that came out yesterday, for example?
I like the fact that everyone has different polling. Like, it's almost become its own form of campaign tool. Like, everyone releases polls that say they're doing great, and none of the polls overlap, which is amazing.
I mean, Hillary Clinton had a 90% chance of winning. So let's take polls with a grain of salt. My opinion is I take the word of people that I interact with more seriously than polls. For example, like I said, my mom heard Canthan on the radio, and she was like, yeah, just from hearing him on the radio, I'm definitely going to vote for them. And I think a lot of people that previously voted blue nationally are going to be voting purple now.
You would hope so. But yeah, look, in terms of the poll, I was personally offended at the fact that they used manually dragged boxes to do the bar charts. That really upset me, along with a few typos.
Media geeks.
It hurt. It hurt to see that. And I'm so sorry whoever did that. That must have been laborious, and I apologize. But like, in terms of the numbers, it was interesting to see the ACDP outranking the EFF in the Western Cape. And there is this whole thing where it's like, the DA in the Western Cape, at least, has kind of failed to maintain their stronghold. They really have. I mean, between Patricia DeLille and the ACDP, I think they're going to get hammered in places they're not expecting.
But to under 50%?
I wouldn't know. I'm friends with people who know these things. Me personally don't know, but what I do know, again, man on the ground type stuff, the colored community, not that I like using racial labels, but that's what they are.
It's a category.
It is a category. In terms of the category, they are...
Don't say that in the States, though. That's a racial slur.
Right. Okay, so for anyone in the States, we actually do mean the people. No, they...
The two people in America that listen to our podcast, colored here just means biracial.
Oh my God, that word is even worse somehow. But... they are extremely not happy with the way the DA handled Patricia DeLille. I mean, it was like a forced purge that they kept screwing up, and they just kept shooting themselves in the foot over and over again. Even though they had her dead to rights and some stuff, they just kind of let that slide. And now it's like a lot of people, when the whole kind of high-minded, principle-based project fails, they fall back to racial lines, and I think you might see a lot of that in the Western Cape. So it's like,
I mean, for me, I think the Western Cape, as my friend said yesterday, go short Joburg, long Western Cape. Imagine you have a DA that needs coalitions to actually form a majority government in the Western Cape, and they have to side with Freedom Front Plus, the Cape Party, and the
maybe they'll
ACDP.
remember who they are then. Maybe
that'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for Pretoria. My guess for Pretoria will be people aren't totally dissatisfied with the DA in Pretoria from what I know. So I would say Pretoria will be a large saving grace for the DA in terms of votes. But I think that you will also obviously see a very strong Freedom Front Plus thing, and also obviously a strong ZACP push in Pretoria.
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean strong. For that in ZACP terms, because 3 weeks ago, people said you won't even get one seat, and now they're saying, okay, you'll get a seat, but it doesn't, one seat's not enough anyway to do anything substantial. So I have no idea what we're going to get. Polling data is not on our side. We're in the margin of error, and we're very short.
That's the thing, and I think a lot of I think people in this whole equation are forgetting to, or not forgetting to, but rather underrepresenting the impact of foreign votes. I think there's going to be a lot of ZACP votes from this recent foreign voting stream.
Yeah, but there was only about 30,000 voters that were registered.
I have no idea what the numbers are. I think it was something quite low. I mean, but the other thing is that, and I know that you've shared this out, and it's kind of nuts that this even happened, but a comedian is now president of the Ukraine off entirely online campaigning. Which is like,
exactly. It's Meme Magic, guys. Meme Magic made a property developer in Brooklyn president of the United States. Let's not underestimate the power of Meme Magic.
It sounds absurd, but it's true. Like, this is where we are now. And I just, like, the whole thing for me, I mean, whenever I think about this and sort of where the ZACP fits in the whole landscape, it is what the let me start that again. The ZACP kind of embodies what made the DA great initially. which
Yes.
was the principles and the very principled stand, and we work with people that are willing to work with us, etc., etc. When the DA had to push outside of the Western Cape, that's when they lost their way completely, and it's obvious. The DA of 2005 looks nothing like the DA today, and it's like, I think that cost them more than they might realize, because in the last 2 elections, and this was the most interesting thing out of the IRR poll, is that registrations have slowed and participation has slowed in terms of the voting. And I know from the Western Cape, a lot of people, they'll either vote DA because it's the default, or they just abstain from voting because they think the whole process is garbage, because the DA used to be a party that stood up for certain things. And then they deplatformed Helen Zille. And it was like, okay, that was...
No, they became a second string ANC. That's what they did. They tried to play the ANC's game, and they became second fiddle ANC light.
And then they lost completely. So it's like, I think they're going to take a huge knock.
Yeah, but I think the problem with the DA strategy from the start is that they are political universalists. So they think that if the more they grow, they will one day govern the country and can implement the policies themselves to lead to reform or growth or whatever the case might be. Whereas I'm a political pluralist. Yep. So I think there should be a very minimal federal state and give a lot more power to local municipalities and communities and even provinces.
To evolve power down to the lowest level.
So as soon as the DA won the Western Cape with like 60% or whatever it was, initially I would have put in hundreds of private member bills into Parliament to decentralize the trains, decentralize policing, decentralize healthcare, make all of those provincial,
functions, responsibilities.
Yeah, there's a special
Mandates.
word in law, but I keep forgetting. Yes, there you go. You can have your health department, a global or a national one at least, but I would have put in like just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of private member bills into Parliament. When they fail, go to court, and make the Western Cape your little, not your little fiefdom, but allow the Western Cape to really pursue the DA's mandate fully. And they keep saying, "Oh, we're hamstrung by national government, etc., etc." Enough with the excuses. I mean, you had your chance.
Yeah, no, they did. And the thing is, there would have been a very tangible outcome if that were the case, because a huge reason for the day zero, I would say crisis, but it was a clusterfuck, that's the technical term, was a failure in bulk supply.
Snafu.
It was a failure in bulk supply because even though the rivers and the mountains and the catchment areas are all physically in the Western Cape, the mandate rests with DWS. Oh my God, I think Roman just died. And he's back. All right, so once again, I have to just commend our insane technical expertise. Roman, we lost you there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, my apologies. I also saw that Discord just restarted by itself.
It's like magic, I know.
Wi-Fi.
So just what I was saying, the day zero happened because even though all the infrastructure that we needed to avert it could have been physically built in the Western Cape, the Department of Water and Sanitation had the mandate, and we found out way too late that they had run out of budget and were unable to actually do anything. If that had been a provincial function from the start, we would probably have avoided a huge amount of that damage. So in that one example, that actually would have helped.
Why don't you just hit up Uncle Bibi in Israel for some desalination tech?
Because it's politically inexpedient. There's a company in Gordons Bay, right down the road from where I live, Graham Tech. They're the ones who are supplying desalination tech to actual deserts. They couldn't get in at the local parliament or the local government here to try and put desalination tech in. No, it was politically unpopular. That's why we didn't get it.
Yeah. I found that... I think that the the way the ANC has run the country through a very centralized bureaucratic system has been bought into by the majority of parties. I think personally, the Free Front Plus and the ZACP are the only ones who don't believe in it. Once you gain power in a constituency, you should actually try to give that constituency as much political power as possible for themselves. That devolves from the central authority. And maybe I'm seeing maybe there's things I don't know. Maybe the things that the DA have been keeping from us in terms of which they couldn't do what I suggested. But I have a feeling that it's a basic misunderstanding of the DA of the universalist view they have, where they actually want to run the whole bloody place in the first place, not just concentrate on where they get votes.
But I mean, like, I've seen this as well, and universalist is actually a good label to use for it. But one of the most interesting / depressing bits of feedback from the ZSCP campaign so far is people going, you don't have the experience, you couldn't possibly run the country, or you have no track record, or you don't have all the people. And it's like, well, then you don't understand how the National Assembly works. You don't need to hold a majority to do anything. You can do a lot
Precisely
with a small number of seats. And what if everyone was represented by small handfuls of seats? That would be slightly better. But I think that universalist thing, it might just be the expectation of most people now that you vote for a party that promises to fix everything. Like there was who are these idiots now from Hermanus? The Land Party. They're a new one. They're like, we're the only party with all the solutions.
Not ELF, but the actual Land Party.
Oh yeah, there's an actual Land Party.
Okay, so can I just, for me, the whole land,
I have no
debate.
land. I feel so left out.
My family has a farm.
Capitalist.
Yeah, we'll send you some shanks. Actually, speaking of shanks, since Mr. Pillay is chief beef, Roman, can we call you Lieutenant Loin?
No.
Please.
Oh my God.
Please.
Lieutenant Loin. Why not something with a rump? Sergeant
Renegade
Rump.
Rump Red. No.
Private Rump. There we go.
Private Rump. There you go. Hey.
The thing about the whole land debate for me, it's obviously a very emotive topic for various reasons. But for me, on a technical perspective, it's almost painful to witness the fixation with land.
Oh, wow. All right, I got to apologize for this break in transmission. It seems that our platform is breaking
We have
down.
this obsession with the fourth industrial revolution, and yet people want land. And I'm like, guys, you do realize with the fourth industrial revolution, there will be almost no point in owning land. I mean, when things like automation and better AI come in, there's food and the wealth that comes from land. That's not an economy we're in anymore. We're moving to an economy whereby things like data is more valuable than, let's say, how much corn or oil you can output. So it's weird to me that parties like the ANC and the EFF are touting the fourth industrial revolution, but also touting land. Like, these two ideas are incongruous with each other. You cannot value land while you're valuing the fourth industrial revolution. Because, spoiler alert, let's say you get your land. Everybody gets their 20 acres and a mule and a white woman to marry, whatever. Okay.
That's an extremely specific hypothetical, but okay.
It's a joke from the old reparations in the US. Anyway, let's say you get your land. Okay, you got your land. Guess what? You can't make that much off of corn anymore. You know why? Because we've got automation that grows that corn. That the corn grows and robots harvest it so quick that like the price of producing that corn is almost nothing. So.
Well, I think it might be a cultural thing. I remember back when Zuma was still in charge, there was a speech where he said something like, he wishes that South Africans would all have a piece of land to farm on. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're living in the 1600s, but the rest of us aren't. Globally, the UN predicts something like 70% of the world will be urbanized in the next couple of years. Like, we're heading to this point where it's urban and then everything rural just supplies the urban areas. And that's kind of where we're going. Globally, it's not just us. So
Yeah. But also you have to sort of understand the ideology of the ANC and the EFF. It's 1930s Marxist doctrine, especially Bolshevik doctrine. And they haven't changed. I mean, if you go to Russia today and you say National Democratic Revolution, they will just laugh at you and say, yeah, we tried that for 40 years. It didn't work out so well. But we still bang on about it like it's a real thing, like it will actually change things. But we had one of my co-conspirators, Katlego Mabusela, was on the SABC this week. And he spoke to the EFF in a public debate. And he said, listen, the world's looking to the cloud, you look into your land. In 20 years' time, what is land going to give you compared to what the cloud will give you?
Exactly.
The world is going in a direction that you cannot even predict, and you're just going to be a slave to the land that you were given today.
Exactly. We're effectively trying to breed champion racehorses while the rest of the world is fine tuning its Formula One engines. Like,
Exactly.
Yeah, we are that far behind. Isn't there, like, it just reminds me, isn't there like an actual thing in the NDR document that says that the state should control like heavy machinery, that exact phrase appears somewhere in there. And it's like heavy machinery. Most people don't care about this, but it is written from the point of view of like the 1800s when mechanization was coming in, and that was the route to wealth, was the heavy machinery and industrialization. Today,
Well, that's
it's
what
technology. Like
those were the what's it called? Means of production.
Yep.
Heavy machinery was the means of production, along with horses and whatever mechanical, whatever was in factories at the time. Now the means of productions are what? Algorithms and bandwidth. I mean, how are you going to control that? I mean, some try.
very, very badly if Facebook is anything to go by.
In fact, I'm pretty sure data is already more valuable than oil at this point.
It might be. And there's this interesting thing. If you look at the NYSE since founding, there's actually these clear phases where when energy was the main thing, petroleum, gasoline, etc., the energy companies dominated the stock market. Today, it's consumer tech and data companies that dominate the stock market. Because at least in that sense, data is more valuable. You still need oil, like you still need energy, but people are more likely to spend more when it comes to the way data is used versus energy, which we're taking more and more for granted.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want energy, just build nuclear power plants everywhere, and you'll get
Thank
a
you.
No,
Thank
but-
you.
but
cheap, fast, reliable energy source for
Okay.
But then
decades and decades
everyone-
and decades.
Everyone will then teleport back to Chernobyl 19 whatever, and everything will blow up. We all know that this is
I'm
what's going to
really
happen.
glad you brought this up because I brought this up on Twitter before and we brought this up on the show. I'm so sick. This is my science geek moment. I'm so sick of people bringing up Chernobyl, a badly kept, badly designed uranium-powered Russian plant. Okay, nuclear energy suffers from the hangover of uranium. We don't need to use uranium as a power source anymore. We can use thorium, which is infinitely safer. I actually posted a video about this, but long story short, it's an alternative to uranium. It's easier to mine. It's far more abundant, far less dangerous to work with, and produces far more energy.
But also, all of that doesn't
Come
make
on.
me feel personally good about not using plastic straws or having a solar-powered car or something.
Oh my!
And that exact interaction is what this whole debate actually is. The green energy thing is about the way people feel about their energy, not what is actually most efficient. Because nuclear is most efficient, but you can't lord it over somebody that you made a positive change in your life to kind of go off grid or go renewable. So it's as much about the personal brand as it is about the actual energy production.
Well, I think nuclear energy proponents have been terrible at PR.
Yes.
And I'm the first one to say that. So on our show, the Renegade Report, we spoke to a guy called Michael Schellenberger last week. And he is part of, he likes nuclear energy. And we used all the usual objections. You know, it's not safe if you look at Chernobyl. And he says, listen, the effects of radiation have been vastly overstated. If you are, there's more energy, there's more radiation in an
From
airplane,
flying
than anywhere near Chernobyl. And if you have sustained periods of radiation, the worst you can get is maybe thyroid cancer, which is like the easiest one to treat.
And again, thorium, not uranium.
Right. We didn't even talk about thorium. We just said just the tech as it is.
Yep.
Is perfect. In Fukushima, more people died from being removed from the radiation zone than died from radiation. Well, you had hospitals and clinics and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So people, and old age homes, people were moved to like school gyms 200 kilometers away and they died on the way, or they didn't have the necessary health care where they were moved to because they feared radiation. But the radiation would have done very little to the outcome of the person. It would have actually been easier and better for the patient to be left within the radiation zone than being moved out like they did.
I will say this. There's the whole not in my backyard argument for nuclear energy. I'm perfectly happy to live near a modern sort of thorium power nuclear power plant.
Yeah,
I'm
because on the plus side, if it does ever blow up, you'll be the first to go. So, I mean, that's also technically safer.
That's not how thorium meltdowns work.
I know. I'm being deliberately obtuse here.
But here's the thing. So we spoke about to Michael Schellenberg about the nuclear deal for South Africa. And we said, yes, but look at the corruption and the debt. And he says, all of that stuff is way worth it. You would have cheap energy for decades and decades and decades.
And
Corruption happens everywhere. You could default on whatever loans you had for the nuclear power plants, and even the sense of maintenance. There's international agreements that you have to sign up to. So he says, despite the corruption, despite everything, you should have still gone for the nuclear deal. Now that is something quite interesting.
It is, because I remember there was huge panic about the trillion rand price point, and everyone was like, we can't possibly afford this. But as it turns out, we're paying for ESCOM anyway, and that's going to be about as much as the nuclear deal would have been. Like, okay, does it actually matter anymore? Because that's how much we're spending. So
well, the two coal power plants have gone, what, 400 billion now? Kusile and Medupi?
Something ridiculous. And
it's a tech from the 70s?
They don't. I think Marcello tweeted out something like, ESCOM power plants are all supposed to run for 60 years, and anyone who says otherwise is lying to you, or something like that. I'm like, no, dude, that's not. I know that from SimCity. Okay, I used to play SimCity. Power plants had a lifespan.
You training, yeah. You're ready to run a city after you play SimCity.
Oh my god, especially like the new ones where people actually have opinions. Like at that point, it actually does train you to deal with people's nonsense.
Fake news.
Well, when the ZACP becomes supreme dictator of the land, we'll ensure that every civil servant plays SimCity for at least 2 years before they're given a job in the civil service.
We already know they're showing up to work and not doing anything, so you may as well play a game that'll teach you something.
It's not game. It's a skills development.
It's a training center. No, it is. Isn't it? There was like there was a Thabo Mbeki thing recently where he said a whole bunch of stuff that he normally says, but one of the interesting things was the staff of the presidency ballooned from like 300 to 1,000 people, and people would just come to the office every day and play Patience and Solitaire, specifically those two games, and do like nothing else. And I'm like, okay, at this point, you may as well play something that'll teach you how to run a country.
But they're creating jobs.
Oh my god. Yeah.
The only thing, I mean, they've got the will, they've got the jobs. The only thing that they don't understand is basic economics and having respect for the taxpayer. Those are the only things they...
Very big things. Like, very important things.
But it does demonstrate a sort of the perverse incentive of affirmative action quotas and things like that, especially when that SARS IT lady came onto the
No, please
SABC
protect me from
morning.
yourself. I can't deal with this. No, please protect me. I can't.
Right. So we're paying this lady 3 million rand a year, and she has absolutely no clue. But no clue as in she's unsure. She literally has no clue. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect on a level that is very difficult to see most days.
It's painfully laughable.
Yeah,
A first year kid studying computer science at varsity could do her job better than her.
All she did was call meetings. Like, I watched the whole debriefing, because I'm like, there's no way this woman is that stupid. And then I watched it, and I'm like, okay. Her main thing was that she coordinated and made things happen, which is code for she just told people to sit in meeting rooms. I mean, that was it. Like, it's all she did for $3 million a year. Like,
but isn't that what a PA is supposed to do? She was head of IT.
Yeah, it's like, exactly, right? A head of IT only gets involved when things go off the rails. Normally you have project managers and you have division heads and people below you who do that. But I think the other thing was really funny was she said that she had to fight a very long time to earn the respect of her colleagues. And I'm like, I don't think it was a respect question. I think nobody could work with you because you don't know what you're doing. There's something to fight for there. You didn't win that fight. They just gave up and started working around you. That's what happened.
So let me just give you a little anecdote. So a friend of mine works for an important institution, and he had to go meet Ria Piega, who was the police commissioner in 2011 or 2012.
Oh, I remember her. Yeah.
Right. So they go to Pretoria to the police building.
Yeah, I live near there actually.
And they go in the underground parking, and there's one parking spot open. It says reserved, but they're like, oh, we don't give a shit. They park. They go inside the building. They go to the floor they were supposed to be on. The security guard is sleeping at his desk. And this is like 10 o'clock in the morning, right? So they go.
Was hungover, obviously.
They knock on the desk and say, hey, where's the commissioner's office? He says, yeah, it's like down there somewhere. So they go to the commissioner in the office. Outside, there are two policemen, but like, the guns were not holstered correctly and everything was a bit of a mess. And the police commissioner is not there. So they go, fine, we'll wait. They wait about 10 minutes. Then they just hear the screeching coming from down the stairwell, like horrific shouting. And then everyone's in a panic. Everyone is on their feet and running around. And they're like, what's happened? No, the police commissioner arrived and someone parked in a parking space.
Oh, nah.
So they're like, oh, maybe that's us. Well, quickly, move it out quickly before she really loses her shit. So they go down, they take the car out, the police commissioner parks, she swears at them, and then she goes up, and then they follow her up. And then they finally get to her office. Her office is a desk with, now imagine, do you know those pink headboards that are sort of made of suede?
Oh, yeah.
Please say you're joking.
But it's not real suede, it's like fake suede.
Yeah,
okay, but please say this is a joke.
It's not a joke at all.
Not, no.
And there's like a sort of curtains flowing down from the roof that look like mosquito nets, but they're not supposed to be mosquito nets.
Pimp C would be proud. Pimp
like
C
this,
of
it's like this pink
UGK.
It's like this pink lace that's flowing down from the roof onto behind her desk.
Okay.
There's like a torn poster of Jacob Zuma on the wall. And like the whole thing is like just a nightmare. The whole department of the police commissioner's office is
well,
just
you've got to have a picture of
nightmare.
Ndate Jacob on your office wall.
I applaud her courage in decorating an office like an actual whorehouse, because that's what it sounds like. No wonder she got fired for an SMS.
Those were the terms described as well. It looked like a whorehouse, and my friend said he can just imagine what John Foster would say. John Foster would say now if he had to come into the future and look at what his office looks like now. He said it'd be from like a prison cell to a fucking brothel. Great.
It's like, wow. I mean, but maybe she's just living her truth. Like maybe this
living her truth. I'll give you a converse anecdote. Is a couple of years ago, my brother and my I don't know what you call it. It's my godfather, his son. So I guess my godbrother were hanging out in my mom's estate in the northwest, and my godfather lives in the same private estate, and we were hanging out in one of the abandoned not abandoned, but construction houses. As kids do. Fucking sitting around talking shit and playing cards, whatever. And the private security found us there, and he wasted no time grabbing control. I didn't realize this then, but having gone through firearms training, I look back on that incident and I realized how horrifically effective he was in control of his firearm and in control of the situation and making sure we were all on our knees, sitting down and being he started, using his voice and volume to control us to sit down, get on your knees until I can identify whether you're a threat or not. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine a modern police officer being that effective at their job.
Oh, no.
I mean, this is a private estate where kids walk around at 8, 10 at night. The bicycles get left on Wogan, you came with us. There's bicycles left on the lawn, and they're still there the next morning. So
which is a shock in South Africa.
Yeah, it's a weird sort of contrast to this whole. The actual police are that shitty at their job.
But it's not surprising. I mean, private security by numbers is bigger than the SAPS, isn't it? At this
5 times more.
5 times, okay.
500,000 security guards, 120,000 policemen or so.
Which explains why the SAPS is retaining private security to protect some of their police stations.
Oh, absolutely. And most of the guns on the street are stolen from police officers and police stations and military bases.
Oh my God. You see, I remember this story years ago where there was a quote-unquote break-in at an armory
let's put our tinfoil hats on. Was that really a break-in, or was that, oh no, you've stolen our guns type thing?
Somebody was paid a couple grand in a brown envelope to look the other way. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
You two are making this far more sophisticated than it really looks. Do you know you can just basically walk in to a military base?
I really want to.
There's one in Pretoria near the Africa Forum office, and I just drove in, and they say, "What you doing here?" I say, "I'm coming for a meeting." I said, "Okay," and that's it. And then, so I just drove in, I walked around, saw a helicopter.
Was this Waterkloof?
I don't know if it's in Centurion. I don't know what it's first division.
It can't have been Waterkloof.
No.
Hey,
you need to be Indian to get into Waterkloof.
Oof.
Oh,
you have to have connections.
If
but it's a wedding, it's very important.
If Odin and I had a love child, they'd look Indian.
I think so.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
I don't know how the genetics of that would work, but okay. We'll go with that. No, it was. I've been to office buildings that have better security than that. Where it's like they actually check the person that you're coming to see. It's like a very basic thing. So,
Yes.
but I'm not surprised. I mean, I know a bunch of people who served in the army during like the border wars. And it's like the army today versus what it was back then. Chalk and cheese.
Thank goodness. I thank the Lord every day that they're very incompetent.
That's the one thing we got right is we don't give a shit about the military. That if we did, we'd be in like Venezuela grade trouble right now if we didn't.
Absolutely.
So
Speaking of which, I see they're driving armored cars into civilians now.
just straight up GTA bullshit. Like, is that where we are now? I mean,
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if you saw that, Roman.
Yeah, someone said on Twitter that it's good to see the Venezuelan army allow females to join the driving corps.
On one hand,
I don't think it's a direction problem. I think it's more like an obstruction problem that they were solving.
On one hand, the 4chan shit poster in me wants to chuckle at that, and on the other hand, I'm like, these are actual people being fucking plowed through by an armored vehicle.
Of course.
Is that joke really worthwhile? Because it's sort of this weird cognitive dissonance thing where I'm like,
you know what? If you
shit posting, but also, yeah, that's messed up.
You need the humor to process that, though. Like, you do need to dissociate yourself sometimes from the knowledge that Venezuela has now fucked up to the point where it looks like an actual dystopia and the government's shooting at people. Like, that's no joke.
Once again, that was not real socialism, guys.
No, but here's the thing, though.
It looks real now.
Chavez and Maduro and all those chaps, they've won elections. Not the latest one, but Chavez won overwhelming majorities. Maduro won the first election after Chavez passed away. One would suspect that at least 60, 70% of Venezuelans vote for socialism all the time. It's a bit like South Africa. Mm-hmm. How much... I mean, I feel sorry for the people who didn't vote for them are stuck in that scenario, but what can someone like me or like the US or someone else do when people just vote for their oppressors every single time?
Or they can intervene. I mean, there was, I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently some of the weapons the rebels are using look extremely American and are only manufactured.
There were also Swiss and German weapons there and Russian weapons there. So it's all mishmash.
Which I don't think means anything.
People are the American weapons found there. There are American weapons fucking everywhere, guys. Let's be realistic about this. The CIA giving that shit out like candy. Okay.
And the thing is, those would have been like probably bought from like drug cartels in Mexico who got them from the CIA or something. Like, there's any number of ways that could be the case.
Yeah, people should watch Lord of War with Nicolas Cage.
Boom! Yes, amazing.
Best movies. Yeah, phenomenal movie.
I still need to see that. Yeah.
Damn it, Wogan. Stop playing Overwatch bullshit and watch Lord of War. It's far better use of your time.
We put a lot of effort into our Overwatch, okay?
You would have fun if you joined us, okay? Like, I know you're a grown man, but, you'd have fun.
That's not an excuse, dude. We all grew up with games. This is part of, like, this generation's cultural identity. Come on.
No, I play Apex Legends now, but I haven't played in a few weeks. But I'm on PlayStation 4, so I don't know if you can play with like PC players or Xbox. I don't know. I think so.
I don't.
Some games are cross-platform online. Some, not all.
Right,
Yeah,
but I don't have much time to play at the moment. So I do quite enjoy it. For me, it's like sort of people meditate. I just play video games. It has the same sort of effect to me. That or reading.
Yeah, although playing video games, you get to inflict damage on other people in a virtual scenario, which reading can't do. Not really.
But Twitter can.
Twitter is real, man. Words of violence, Roman. Didn't you know this? Everything you say is offensive to someone.
Exactly. Like, even I can't say the N-word on Twitter anymore.
Of all people, the man who has the actual pass to say it legally can't say it.
About Kanye West, again, of all people.
Well, Twitter is just a shithole. Like, I think when Trump was talking about African countries, he must have been talking about Twitter because that's what it is.
I love Twitter.
We're all on it.
I think Twitter's amazing. Well, I met you two fine fellows on Twitter, and I met
against all odds. Like,
I met Chief Beef on Twitter. I met many people on Twitter that I'm friends with to this day. And as someone who has very thick skin and doesn't care, it's the best playground I've ever been on.
It's like you just...
And I'm like the bully, and it's great.
I know, which is like, the thing is, like, you need to be prepared for what you're stepping into, because like there's sections of Twitter which is just like, you know, people talking about a game or a movie or a programming language, and they're quite sedate, but the moment you get to public affairs, it's like, it's a shitstorm. And the thing is, you need to just be prepared for what you're going to see, and then you're fine. Then you know how to navigate this labyrinth.
Yeah, I hate it when people say they want to sort of regulate Twitter and the spread of fake news is worrying. Listen, people, only the boomers spread fake news. Like, people our age who are like under 35 know the bullshit from the real stuff.
Yes, of course. Because
it's our parents that are at fault.
Is it all the boomers? Right, okay. So 32-year-old anti-vax moms aren't spreading fake news.
The thing is, there was a study on this, and it's like...
on 32-year-old anti-vax moms?
No. On the boomers and the propensity to share stuff which is not true, and they found that the younger generation can tell the bullshit a lot easier. It's not perfect, but I mean, that is... If you grow up in this environment, you eventually learn to see the information and the context in which it's shared. Whereas boomers just see the information. Like, this headline agrees with me, I'm going to forward it, and then you get those email chains.
But I really think anti-vaxxers, like, there is a point to their existence, though. So if you are a bit of a man who likes to sleep around with women, I think they call them studs.
It's a
hook up with an anti-vaxxer, because then you only have to pay like 2 years maintenance.
There we go. We just hit our demonetization point.
Yes, we did it.
Right there.
41 minutes in. Every episode we have to say something that means we'll never get monetized on YouTube. Thanks, Roman. You've saved us the effort.
That was quite polite to my usual jokes, but it's not a joke. I think the weird thing about anti-vaxxers is they're taking themselves out of the food chain. I do think, though.
Yeah, natural selection.
But weirdly, what do you make of children who actively want to go get vaccinated but can't? Is that a form of child abuse?
I would say yes.
I'm also inclined to say yes.
So I have this whole thing, and I've been accused of being transphobic for it before, because I hold the extremely controversial opinion that maybe you shouldn't force gender therapy on kids who haven't gone through puberty yet. I feel like that's a fairly straight line I can stand on. But when it comes to things like vaccinations, which don't fuck up your gender, they just protect you against disease, yes. I mean, I got vaccinated at school. It was a thing we did at school because that was the best way to do it.
Got the little mark here, yeah.
But it's
vaccination.
But then again, I'm also the kind of person that would be like, if you want to shoot heroin and not vaccines, sure. It's your body.
Again, I say, look, mandatory vaccines are messed up. If you don't want to take vaccines, fine. But as an adult, if you don't want to take vaccines, but if you're screwing over your kid who genuinely wants to get vaxxed, that's where I draw the line.
It's tough.
But it's often not your kid itself. It's when unvaccinated children go on holiday somewhere where vaccines are not as plentiful as one would think. I know, like, a French kid went to, I think it was Ecuador, Costa Rica on holiday, and like infected dozens of people. Now there's a bit of an outbreak, a measles outbreak in Costa Rica, I think it is.
It was something that was either that or Ecuador, one of those countries. But I remember looking at that and going, okay, so we're back to germ warfare. It's now officially the 1300s again, guys. We're doing this. We were exporting our Guns, Germs and Steel, that book? We're just exporting our Western diseases again. Like, okay, we've come full fucking circle, guys.
Back to the smallpox blankets, guys. Elizabeth Warren, watch out. By the way, I think all of us are more % Native American than Elizabeth Warren.
I think my microphone is more Native American than Elizabeth Warren.
I'm willing to take that wager, actually. Speaking of which, what's your guys' take on the current American political sphere right now?
Is it all still on fire? Because I don't know. I know that Odin pays attention to this.
I'll summarize it in this little bit. There's about 20 Democrats running against Donald Trump. 2 of them have a chance, in my opinion, and they are Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, and they will both be taken out by their own parties or fellow candidates. And then Donald Trump, because the thing is, when a challenger is running, It's a whole new thing. But when an incumbent is running again, it's a referendum on the incumbent, and people tend to go with the person they know. As shitty as that is, and it's very rare. Look at the data. There's very few one-term presidents. So realistically, all Donald Trump has to do is like hold the wheel, and he's probably going to win.
But what I really want to see, and I'd pay money to see this, is Joe Biden versus Donald Trump in a series of debates. Like, I really want to see that. Just for entertainment value. Yes.
The meme master versus creepy Uncle Joe.
Exactly, like moderated by one of Trump's kids. That's what I want to see. I don't like the politics are beside the point. But the thing is, like the whole the pushback against Trump before his election was that basically he was going to cause the second coming of Jesus Christ. There was going to be an apocalypse. And as it turns out, it hasn't been an apocalypse. There's been some proper fuck-ups, but no apocalypse. So at the next election, I think, like you said, it's going to be like, you told us Trump was the worst thing ever, but we're all still here. So how bad could it really be? That might actually be how people think.
And let's not forget, the economy has grown tremendously under Trump. Whether it's his policies or not, I think obviously some of them are his policies. I think the US has become a more powerful force in the world today than it was under Obama. Personally speaking, as someone on the outside, Trump has done very little wrong in terms of like scandal wise.
Yeah,
because he's been under the microscope far more than any other president that I'm aware of.
Exactly.
Which is crazy, right? And they can't find anything. And I'm like, I keep saying this. It's like Clinton got impeached for a blowjob, but you're telling me the man who sold you out to Russia, you can't get him? Are you kidding?
Again, guys, I go back to this. Donald Trump is the guy who in high school couldn't stop telling you how many beers and girls he scored last weekend. Do you really think if there was an ounce of Russian collusion, he would have been able to keep his mouth shut about it? Hell to the no.
I remember the briefing where he told people, you wouldn't believe what I read in my national security brief every morning. And I'm like, fuck, it's that kind of person. Like, you're right. He would absolutely take credit for the great deal he made with Putin to get the election. He would say those words and then you'd know. But nothing. So it's like the man's character is his own defense in this. Like, it's amazing.
He's utterly shameless. He's utterly megalomaniac. And when someone is shameless and has an ego that size, like you can't, no matter what you do, the attacks don't matter at all. It's like Jacob Zuma, right? You could attack him. You could say, stop Zuma. You could do whatever you want. The guy just laughed in your face.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And I think a lot of Trump voters aren't voting on him on the strength of his character. Even like the classic sort of more conservative Christian Trump voters aren't voting on his character. I've got a lot of friends in the States who are very conservative in that way, and I'm like the same line appears every time. It's I'm not voting for him because of his character. I look to my community or my minister or whatever for moral guidance. I'm voting for him because policy X, Y, and Z, and because Hillary is a batshit insane war hawk. FYI, as far as I know, he still hasn't started any new wars, which is a weirdly low bar for an American president.
Unfortunately, he's carried on supplying Saudi Arabia with weapons to bomb Yemen and things like that. But I mean, he's not unique in that regard, so we can't hold it against him.
It's probably more the military-industrial complex just sits every president down and says, here's the deal, don't fuck with us. Like, probably in that short a meeting.
Yeah, they sit you down, they show you a video of the Kennedy assassination, and like, okay, so here's how it's going to go.
Your face here. But that is true. It's like every war, I mean, that's almost the point now, is that these companies continue to manufacture the weapons, and it's like, it doesn't really matter who the president is, these things keep going. So, okay.
And that won't change. It appears that the Democrats are more hawkish than the stage, which is strange as well. But in terms of contenders, I really rate, I think, Gebhard and Andrew Yang, because Yang, he's been on Joe Rogan, on Ben Shapiro, and a few other podcasts, and the guy is bloody smart. I don't think his UBI idea is a brilliant one, but he is able to answer all the questions that I have about it to people who are opposed to the idea anyway. Smart as a whip, really, really like him. Gebhard, a war dove, and from all I've seen, she's always been reasonable. Says we shouldn't bomb Syria, because it's not a good idea to get involved in these sort of wars. But as soon as you're anti-war on the left-hand side, you just you're not welcome into the group, which is the weirdest thing.
I mean, I think Gabbard would clean up the slightly right of center Republican voters. A lot of the sort of in places like Ohio and Michigan, a lot of slightly right voters could end up voting for Gabbard.
Yeah, and she's pro-weed legalization as well. And that's the one thing I don't understand. If I was Donald Trump, I would legalize drugs. Right now, build the wall, and then do nothing else. I think that legacy of ending the drug war is a legacy that will be infinitely more hallowed than most other presidents.
Which is a solid question. I actually don't know. Has he been drawn on this? Has he been kind of pulled into a fight regarding the war on drugs? What's his actual position?
His base won't allow it.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. Is this the Jeff Sessions school of thought, where we have to maintain the war on drugs at all costs? Okay.
But not because the war on drugs is justified, it's because they're bringing drugs in, so you stop the illegal immigrants type of I would call it xenophobia to some degree. But if you go to the southern states of the US and you speak to people in the so-called flyover states, drugs are a terrible thing, and they want them banned. They don't want them legalized. It's a bit like South Africa. We're quite conservative in that. My question is, are they terrible
because, I mean, if you decriminalize him, do you not think that might actually be more effective than putting a kid into prison for holding so many ounces of weed on him? And
yeah, but it's not about what works or what doesn't. It's about what it says to you, what it says about you as a person, that you have to use drugs. You're not a man. You're un-American. You don't like your freedom. You're not making your way in the world, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, it's far more of a moral...
I know a couple of guys. Yeah, I know a couple of guys in Alabama growing weed, but you didn't hear that from me.
No, we didn't. Please don't snitch. It's like the number one rule. But it is much more of it's a moral fight more than like a practical one. You're never going to stop drugs. But at least you can tell yourself, I'm a good person because I stand against the evil scourge of drugs and support anyone else who does. Which on a personal level, like your family, your community, okay. On a national level, no. At that point, you've got Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and you have some seriously fucked up approaches to the way this is handled.
I mean, as far as Trump's concerned, for re-election, he just needs to do three things. Like you said, build the wall, decriminalize drugs, and at his big re-election speech, bring on like they did with the hologram of Tupac, do a hologram of Harambe. It's done. It's done. Because I don't know how many thousands of people voted for Harambe in 2016. Bring Harambe on, hologram, drugs decriminalized, war there, done.
The crazy thing is, none of that is outside the realm of possibility right now. Technically and socially speaking, we can do that, and we probably will. That's where we are now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you two. I really, really, really love the shitposting politics. I think it's phenomenal.
It's, you know what, and it's a time-honored tradition, actually. Going as far back as the first elections, you find dirt on opponents and you nail them on that. That's just the whole fight. I mean,
I think that people, even back, there was a whole special. I think it was, oddly enough, College Humor of all places, where they ran a special of
back when they were funny.
Back when they were funny, past political campaigns. And you go back to the time of the founding fathers, and even to the time of people like, I don't know, Calvin Coolidge and all that, who, by the way, is still my favorite American president of all time.
I second that.
I think he's still the only one that's ever actually reduced the national debt and reduced the size of the government in any way or form, ever.
That's true.
More Coolidge is there, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did you know about the Great Depression of 1920?
Which would have been fine if was it FDR back then? No, it was Woodrow Wilson who didn't keep tinkering with the election.
Not 1929, 1920.
20.
There was a huge depression in America before or just after Calvin Coolidge got elected to be president.
Yes, and he got blamed for that.
Yes, and what did he do? Absolutely nothing for 9 months. Absolutely nothing. And the depression lasted in half the time they were expecting it to last. Mm-hmm. And it manifested itself later in 1929, and then they just exacerbated it with the New Deal, with a lot of government spending and the Keynesian multiplier effect, or whatever you call it. So Calvin Coolidge was great because he actually did very little as president on purpose.
which is actually like you don't really need government, isn't it? I don't know if it's still the case in Spain, but there was some kind of crisis last year, and they didn't have like an elected parliament, and that held for months, and the whole country just kept running.
Yeah, until this
Weird.
until this week, they had a government only this week, but they didn't. No one wanted majorities. They're still doing coalitions. But I think it was like 10 months without a government.
10 months, holy shit!
And the economy grew like 3%.
Wow.
It's like that's the whole case study of if you want to grow the economy, just get the government out of the way, and then it will happen because people want to make things, buy things, and make money. That's what they want to do. Just let them do it.
Sure.
You would think it's that simple, right?
And civil servants still go to work. People still make payments to the civil servant salaries and upgrading of roads. They still make decisions, just administrators of the state. But they're like middle management of any other company. Money's still there. Like nothing stops at a fundamental level.
10 months. Like if they'd stretched it for 12 months, that would have been like the equivalent of a full fiscal year. At which point you can honestly say, maybe we can do without government for a few years. Maybe we should elect a government once every 5 years for 6 months, and then the rest of the time just have no government and just do whatever. Like maybe that's a better option.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Cheaper. Yeah, just like every now and then, just kind of check in, right the ship, make sure we're not killing ourselves, then carry on because that's all you seem to need, really.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the end of our hour here.
Yeah.
Any wise words or closing thoughts? Because I will say, for anyone who doesn't know, Ramon is one of the co-founders of the ZSCP, right? Like one of the top 3? Or
Indeed. That's correct.
There's no top.
Number 2.
But for like
Sergeant Sirloin or whatever.
Private
Yes.
Private Rump.
So Camden came to me about 4 years ago with the idea. And I said, okay, what's it called? The Capitalist Party. I said, that's a stupid name. No one will believe us. And then he said, okay, but the logo is a purple cow. I said, no, shit. Are you drinking something that I'm not aware of? This is ridiculous. And he said, listen, you're in or out? I said, okay, fine, I'm in, but that's going to be a disaster. And Chief Beef is always right, and I'll follow him into any battle. So yes, I'm number 2. Is in line if there had to be a line of succession. And we're on the ballot for the Capitalist Party of South Africa.
Yeah, the IEC. I think it's the IEC needs a line. Like they need a list in the top 10 and everything, and all the rest. But
no, we had to put in a candidates list. Yes, an official one.
Yeah,
one without like people standing trial
or convicted criminals, or people.
Mrs. Johnny Walker.
Yeah, jeez. The ANC list is a nightmare. No, but it's just like sort of closing thoughts because it is literally a week to the election, which also means that next week, Wednesday, is another public holiday, which is just fantastic.
Dope.
So yeah, this is your
You're welcome, guys.
Roman, you can now pitch anyone who hears this. Why should we vote ZSCP? Let's see how you do this.
Oh, it was very simple. We got 10 principles. 10 plans and 10 people. The principles are your classic liberal principles of freedom of speech, property rights, gun rights, spontaneity, self-order, things like that. Our plans solve issues now, cheaply, effectively, and simply, without spending your money. The main reason we want to run and be in Parliament is to control the budget of Parliament and to ensure that they spend our money wisely and not on vanity projects. And if they have a plan, we can say to them, no, your plan's too expensive and cheap, but here's a better one for half the price that will be quicker to implement and solve the issue in a much shorter period of time. And that's it.
So pretty much the nation's conscience, because that's the one thing it's missing from Parliament right now.
Conscience in politics?
To the extent that you maybe don't want to set the whole country on fire by just promising people double the grants, which they keep doing. So, a conscience that has a brain that tells you can't keep borrowing to pay civil servant salaries to a bloated public service. Like, it feels like these things should be obvious, right?
No, but Wogan, you're underestimating the ideology that overrides pragmatism here.
No, the thing is, it's like I'm
politics of the stomach.
I'm capable of both appreciating the mitigating factors and also being incredulous at them. Like, how can you be this stupid? I get why. I just also can't believe it. Which is...
It's an absurd world. Get used to it. The universe doesn't care about us anyway.
You bought the tickets to the circus. You might as well laugh, guys.
Yeah, front row seats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to the freak show.
It's less funny when you're actually in the circus, though, and you're one of the people the line's about to jump over. All right, so that's our show for this Saturday, which we did not record on Wednesday, I promise. Any closing thoughts? Odin? No?
I would say that as we go into these elections, guys, I would say think carefully about where you put your X. The concept of voting small parties, again, like I said before, is saying small parties don't matter is the equivalent of saying that wasn't real socialism. It's really ridiculous. Think very carefully about who you vote for, who the parties have decided to put on their ballots in terms of people, and what the parties have done and how they've conducted themselves thus far, and then make your decision.
Yeah, fair enough. Good. Roman, anything?
All right. Yeah, well, this is the first time I'll be in close on 10, 12 years now, because, well, we started a political party, of course. But in terms of voting, I mean, look, how can I explain? It's a difficult time in South Africa, and the way things will turn is probably not the way that you want them to turn out in the first place. But very, very important. The future is of coalitions, and the future is about political niches that will have to work together sometime or other. Once the ANC leaves the office, there will never be a supreme political party again in the foreseeable future. It just doesn't form part of our political system. The ANC is an anomaly, not the norm.
Yep.
So just think carefully about this election, but for future elections as well. What ideas do you want in the public space? And if you start voting for that party now and they just get one seat, but they get 10 in the next one and 20 in the next one, within 10 to 15 years, you see your ideas will be amplified politically much quicker than if you never voted for them at all in the first place.
Yeah, it's about planting the seeds for the future. What's that quote? Societies grow great when men plant seeds of trees they will never sit in the shade of. Something like that.
Also, dunking on Pumzile. Just that.
Also, that most important. Yeah, my last thing is just that. Just a reminder, especially now with the way the DA is campaigning. In 1994, the Democratic Party only got about 1.5% of the national vote. They also started out as a small party. If people had voted for the biggest opposition in 94, they would have voted NP. So that argument holds absolutely no merit. You vote for the party that represents you.
Right, and it went from 1.7% to 22% within 15 years based on what principles, guys?
Liberal ones. Classical liberal ones. The ones policies that work. That we have objective freaking evidence that they work.
I just want to end SARS, guys. That's all I want. Like,
yeah, that's next episode. We'll tackle SARS. All right, well, thanks, Roman, very much for joining. It was great having you here.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Cool. And we're out. You can find us at noscriptshow.com.